Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and today I'm in downtown Chattanooga at the Waterhouse Pavilion, where Heather and I got married a couple of weeks ago. And today I'm going to be checking out and reviewing and doing some photo walking with a new lens from Viltrox. This is a autofocus 28mm Pancake f4.5 lens. This is for full frame cameras from Sony, and I think they're also going to make a full frame Nikon version, but I'm not 100% sure. I can promise that they're going to be making the one for Sony because I have it right here in my hand. So here's the lens. Look how tiny this thing is. I mean, it is little bitty. Super thin, like I said earlier, it is a pancake lens. And it is a full frame lens with 28 millimeters. When you put it on your APS-C camera, like I'm going to do today, I'm going to use it on my A6700. It gives you about a 42 millimeter field of view. If you look at the front of the lens, you'll see that it doesn't have any filter threads for a lens cap or a lens filter to go on, but it does have this sliding thingy that will open and close a cover on the lens. So it has a built-in lens cap, which is pretty cool. The lens is autofocus, and there's no manual focus override. You can't manual focus this lens. It's only autofocus. On the back of the lens, it's all metal, and there is a USB-C port for future upgrades. The side and the front of the lens are plastic, but the back, the mount, the most important part, is metal. I'll be honest with you, when Viltrox offered me to test this lens, I wasn't all that excited about it. Now, I'm usually very happy with Viltrox products, but I don't know, something about a lens this tiny, I just didn't think it was going to be very good. Well, it came in yesterday, and I got home a little bit before Heather, and I put the lens on my A6700, and when she came into the garage and got out of the car, I took my very first picture with this lens of Heather, and it was sharp, and I was really happy with it, and I'll show that to you right now. This is that picture that I made of Heather as she was getting out of the garage. As you can see, it is a RAW file and 28 millimeters with the Viltrox 28 f4.5 FE. This is 1/200th of a second. f4.5 is the only aperture you can use on this lens. That's wide open, and that's stopped down all the way. I had auto ISO on at 800 ISO. And the only thing I've done to this picture editing-wise is I cropped it a 1:1. That way you can't see so much of the clutter in the garage. But I love the light on her. And as you can see, I really was not expecting this lens to be sharp. And look at the detail in her eyelashes and eyebrows and her beautiful eyes. I was very surprised that this lens was this good. So now let's go on the photo walk downtown. So now I've got my A6700 and the lens. It's got a very small red dot. It's kind of difficult to see. But once you know to look for it, it's pretty easy to see, but I missed it when I first tried to put this on. But anyway, I'm going to put this on my A6700. Look how, it almost looks like I've just got a body cover on there, not a lens. And I'm going to take this setup and walk around downtown Chattanooga and do a photo walk and see what kind of shots I can get with this 28 millimeter f4.5 lens. So these pictures have been edited, and I made a huge mistake on this one because I had my shutter speed all the way up at 1/800th, and auto ISO drove the ISO to 16,000. So this thing had a ton of noise in it before I ran it through Topaz Denoise AI. And in some spots, like right here, Topaz didn't clean up the noise. But the lens did fine. That was my fault. I've made this same shot on this alley in Chattanooga now with 3 different lenses, and this is the cheapest one, and it still looks pretty cool. Here's just a shot of some bricks, and you can get an idea of sharpness and vignetting and that sort of thing. There is a little bit of vignetting, but I think natural vignetting from a lens actually adds something to a photo. Here's a photograph of the plaque in front of the Chattanooga Billiard Club. You can take a look at sharpness here. It looks very sharp to me, and I like the colors in this. I've made a photograph of this fire hydrant many times as well, and it kind of gives you an idea of what sort of separation you can get. The fire hydrant is right in front of me, and the buildings are across the street, and There is some separation. It's not the kind of separation you would get with an f2 or a 1.8 sort of a lens, but at 4.5 with a wide 28mm focal length, it separates pretty good. I made this photograph just to kind of show the sharpness and the color rendition. This is a fire truck coming down the road there in Chattanooga. All these, of course, are 28mm and f4.5, so there's not really a lot to tell you about the settings, but this is 1/250th of a second and ISO 320. Here's another depth of field study. I made my focus point this area right here on one of these Chattanooga bicycles that you can rent, and you can see the depth of field fading back. So again, f4.5 is not f2 or f1.4, but you can still get some separation. I sat down on a flower pot and took a picture of this man who's at some sort of conference to get in the game. There were people wearing these clothing all over the place downtown Chattanooga today. And these guys were working in a planter. It's amazing how big those planters are. You don't realize how big they are until you see a person in them. The lens made it easy to grab this shot. They didn't even realize I was making their picture. And I sat down on the ground in the alley and just waited for someone to walk by, and I ended up getting 3 people walking by, and I made this shot, of course, at 28mm and wide open at 4.5. Here's a 1/250th of a second photograph I made with the little Viltrox 28mm Pancake of a man riding down the road in Chattanooga on his bicycle. Thought it turned out nice. Here's another cyclist in downtown Chattanooga. This is the Waterhouse Pavilion over here on the right where Heather and I got married and where I made the early clips in this video. This is another shot at 1/250th of a second. This is my favorite photograph of the day. We have tropical storm, or maybe it's Hurricane Helene is coming our way right now, and it was very overcast. So because of that, I was able to get my shutter speed down to 1/40th of a second, which is the shutter speed I prefer for panning blurs. You know, this lens wide open is 4.5, and usually when I try to make a panning blur, I'll need to get down to f11 or f16 so I can get my shutter speed to 1/40th of a second. But this is 1/40th at 4.5 ISO 100, and I panned as this BMW was coming by, and it's one of my favorite panning blurs I've ever made. Even though the back portion of the car is not in focus, the front portion is sharp as a tack. You can easily see the M logo there on the front, and everything else is very blurred. This car had a loud exhaust system, and he took off from the red light that's on the right-hand side of the frame. He took off pretty quickly, and I made this blur, and it came out so good. Very happy with this shot. And this just gives you an idea of the sort of shot that you can make with this very inexpensive 28mm f4.5 lens from Viltrox. Well, I have spent 2 hours, or nearly 2 hours. I started my parking meter for 2 hours, and I made the clip that you saw at the very beginning of this video. And then I've walked around until my 2-hour parking is about to run out. And I've been shooting with the A6700 and this Viltrox full frame 28mm f4.5 constant aperture, only aperture 4.5 lens. And I can't speak to what the pictures look like yet because I haven't seen them, but you already have, so you know what they look like. But I will say that this lens has been a joy to use in a street photography situation. It's so small, it doesn't draw attention to you while you're out here working. And that is helpful when you're doing street photography. You want to not have attention drawn to you. You want to have people say, oh, look, there's a guy with a huge camera. Well, this lens doesn't do that. So that is good. And I enjoyed it, and I hope you did. I think the lens cost $99 US and maybe 109 euros. I'm not sure exactly. And there may be a link in the description. I'm not sure about that either. But I do know that the lens did a lot better than I thought it was going to. Just based on that first picture of Heather that I showed you at the beginning of the video, I really was not expecting this little $99 lens to be sharp, but it turns out it is. And it's light as a feather and very discreet. So check it out if you're interested in a inexpensive pancake lens for your Sony and possibly Nikon mirrorless camera. This might be one to look at. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. That helps me out a lot. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see some more content like this. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.